This one's going to be, I think I don't know. I imagine the chat probably is going to blow up on this one because everybody has their opinion.
Because everybody gets a playoff spot. There we go.
Everybody's making the playoffs. You get a playoff spot. You get a playoff spot.
Playoffs.
What are the playoffs? That's just extra season. It's extra time in the season. That's all it is. Oh, I don't know, man. Y'all give your opinions. I don't know.
So it's 9 teams, right? 9.
Yeah.
And then 8 and 9 play each other in a one game, which I like. I do like those play-in. Like I like how the NBA does have that play-in. Now in the NBA, the chances of a first or a 7th or 8th seed beating a first or second is practically none. I like that. And then you go into the best of 8 and you're playing a best of 3 series with no extra time, no draws, go straight to penalties.
Best of 3. So yeah, I mean you potentially are going to go into it having to play a full set of 3 games. And I mean, I don't know, maybe it's like a mercy kill that they decided not to add extra time and then penalties, but like that's a lot of extra matches. And I mean, when you get up to like the conference finals and all, like that makes sense because you're back to what it should be. But this whole 3-game thing is just kind of wild to me. Like, I don't know. There's just so many games. Like, I'm all for watching games, but I'm sitting there looking at. We still have only 3 DP slots per team. You can only have so many players on the roster, and you're going to have Leagues Cup this year against Liga MX. That's going to be able to, they can do it. Not that they don't have rules, but they're a lot more liberal with the amount of money they can throw around. And I don't know, man. It's just something's got to bend for these players. That's crazy.
So you're saying a lot there. Like one of the things I would love to talk to at some point is Jeff Lorenowitz, because Jeff was part of the players union, and he was very vocal when they were doing the CBA the first time, then the CBA the second time because of COVID screwed everything up. I'm interested to see what he would say when you're adding in all these games, and my understanding, not much extra pay. I mean, that's always been a thing, right? Like the MLS players are underpaid, and now you're adding in basically a summer tournament. You're adding in another tournament, a best of 3. My worry here is just the quality by the time you get to the end of the playoffs just might be rough. And I think the best of 3, I mean, it's a 2-part thing. Apple wants more games. They got this big deal. They want more games. That's one part of it. But then the second part is I don't think they want these teams that come in and these 7th and 8th seeds to just sit back and hopefully get to penalties and beat the team in penalties. And now you're knocking this best team out. Why don't we just go back to the 2, just the 2 games? And that would have been fine with me if they just did that. But I think it was Garth, or maybe I've dreamt this, but I think Garth was saying like one thing that could happen now that would change this is now you'd have MLS playoff games on every night of the week, where before you were just having them on Fridays and Saturdays. Like, I think that's the exciting part. Like you don't have to wait for the weekend. Because it's going to be a best of 3, you're going to be having games going on all throughout the week.
I don't blame him for saying that because it's a financial benefit to Atlanta United and to any MLS club that makes the playoffs. But kind of going back to the roster thing, was it like let's say a 9th seed makes the playoffs, so that's one match. Was that 7 matches they'll have to play to win MLS Cup? That's just quick math off the top of my head. That's 7 matches plus 34 matches in the regular season. Plus, we talked about Leagues Cup. We already talked about US Open Cup. We haven't talked about Champions League. I mean, what if a team is in Champions League? They have that to worry about. So, again, fuzzy math, that's like 60 matches maximum that you could play across the 60 competition.
For a team that's in Champions League. And then, of course, how far you go in Open Cup and everything else, you're looking at up to around 60-something matches.
Yeah, and we talked about compensation for the players. We talked about rosters for the players. But kind of going back to Leagues Cup for a second, if you want your teams fresh for a playoff run, how are you going to handle that? How are you going to handle the fixture congestion? Because if you don't, you're going to get your clock cleaned by a Liga MX side. And that's the last thing MLS wants, is just MLS team to get taken to woodshed by Liga MX. So you're having to deal with that as well. So I see why they did it, because, again, it's money, more money in the league's pockets, and more financial benefit to, I'll say Amazon. Apple, more financial benefit to Apple to have this kind of hook for people to get MLS season pass. But at some point, the league has to take a look and say, hey, do we have enough players going around to make this work the way we want it to? And are you getting paid enough? AJ said in the comments, he's an English fan. He's trying to understand the new rule. It's crazy.
So
well, I mean, they don't have playoffs they obviously don't have playoffs in the UK or in the Premier League. So it's just a lot of matches, as we already talked about. But MLS is going to have to grapple with that and try to make it so that guys aren't getting burned out toward the end of the season, trying to give it all in a playoff push and not have anything left when the playoffs start. So that's my biggest concern.
Good comment here in the last comment here in the chat about there's an international break between the 3-game series. That is important. I think that does definitely give some people a rest, but not enough.
That also throws a wrench in things too, because you never know what an international break is going to do to a team.
Yeah,
right? Like,
that's true.
You have them go on
a mandatory international break.
That's a good question. I have to look it up. I don't know.
Remember what happened to Miles?
Yep. So, but I mean, I've said it once and I'll say it again. Like, I think going back to the Leagues Cup specifically, because it is kind of an overarching thing. And then, Dan saying it is a mandatory international break. So there you go. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, if MLS goes into the Leagues Cup and does, like you said, Sydney, get their clock cleaned, I actually think that might be one of the best things that could happen this season, because in my heart, I would like to think that Don Garber would then look at everything and be like, hey, maybe we should let these teams spend some more money. Maybe we should let them have another DP spot. Maybe we should let them, change up the roster rules a little bit. And then you have something that's really going to be beneficial next season, when you can have the talent that's going to be able to cover so many games.
Probably should have happened already, though.
It should have happened already, 100%. But I don't know. I don't know if he's like, there's too many changes going on at one time. Like, I don't know what in the world was going on when they decided this playoff format. I just don't know where the common sense was at. But anyway, it's just wild to me. I think with better roster rules, you can make it work for sure, but not the way it is now. Like, you just don't have the depth on a squad to be able to play that many matches.
I think Gar said that there's no change from the MLS Next Pro. Like, it's still, I think, 4 call-ups per player.
Yeah. And then adding on to that, like AJ with another comment, if you're a top Premier League team, you play 60 games easy with cups and European competition and everything else. But the English squads are a lot bigger and the youth players tend to be of higher quality, which is true. And somebody was mentioning, like a guy like Tyler Wolf earlier. I don't know if it's like a knock that he's got or whatever. I don't know why he's not really playing. He was brought back, though, off a loan for a reason. And I think he's going to be the guy that's going to take a lot of the load off of Almada for things like the Open Cup and the Leagues Cup, probably, depending on how important Atlanta wants to make the Leagues Cup. So that's they've got to make do with what they've got, though. It's a lot, and it's a lot of fixture congestion. We'll see how it goes.
You mentioned Wolf, maybe a guy like Jay Fortune as well.
Yeah,
could
love to see him again.
So yeah, a lot of pieces to the puzzle still need to be filled in.